You're listening to Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong, all on Georgia Radio Network.
Welcome to episode 32 of Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast. My name is Dave Roberts.
I'm Matt Lowe.
Oh, gosh. Way to put that cart before the horse there, man.
The man, the legend, he goes off hunting bears and ends up eating snake. Matthew Lowe.
How's it going?
And the brains of the operation, Jessica Szilagyi.
Hello, thank you for saying my name correctly.
Give me 4 shots at something, I'll get it down.
Right. And Dave told me sometime a couple of days ago, he's like, hey, before we record the next one, send me her name phonetically. And I was like, dude, it's like salami, but instead of an M, there's a J sound.
Thanks,
Close.
Matt.
So close.
Well,
How y'all been?
as we record this, I am sitting in a condo on the water in Gulf Shores.
How's the weather?
It was ripping today. Luckily, I can tie a knot, or else my boat would have blown away. It was storming pretty good today.
That stinks.
You know what? It's been a pretty good week. Weather-wise, just we had one day, and it was so bad I didn't even want to run to town. We just sat in the condo and watched TV, which we could have done at home. I mean, I was doing show prep, lots of show prep.
That's good. I had a feeling because you were kind of quiet on social media, so I was like, I bet he's researching and researching. It's what Kelly Clarkson did for American Idol, so I'd expect nothing less of you.
Professionalism at its best.
I did no show prep. I was busy shop vacuuming water and running industrial grade dehumidifiers because my basement flooded.
Which side flooded?
And why?
All right, so my house sits on a hill, and the front of the house is on the downhill side, and when it floods through the front. And it's really a stupid reason that it does it. Is one of two things happens. Either when my kids are cutting the grass, they knock those little pipe extensions off the downspouts, or it rains so fast and so hard that the gutters can't handle the water, and it flows backwards out of the back of the gutter and then lays right there at the house and just kind of saturates it, and I'll get a little water that way. But this time was bad because it was a downspout issue this time with my kid cutting the grass, and I had about 3 inches in here, but we got everything dried out, and I've got a tractor coming Saturday that we're going to pull all of the dirt back. It's about, on one end of my house, it's about 6 feet down to the footers. But we're going to dig it all out. I got to tear the whole front porch off, dig out all of that dirt. We'll put in some French drains, and they make a kind of a waterproof wall board that you can put on there and kind of seal it all off. So we're going to do that. And then put it all back and rebuild everything so that I don't ever have to deal with this crap again, because that's like, I spent a lot of time finishing out my basement and I don't want it to get jacked up. So.
Well, I asked which side because there's 2 sides of plumbing. Luckily, it's rainwater.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I do have a plumber coming out, man. My kids, I asked them what they wanted for Christmas. This is how awesome my kids are. They're like, we want a bathroom downstairs, Dad.
Nice.
So, mostly because, I haven't figured out if that means that my kids are awesome or if it means that they have everything else and I've spoiled them rotten, which is that's probably what it is. But
yeah, I guess that you could say they have everything when they started asking you to improve your own home.
Right. Yeah, Maddox, he's like, I want a dirt bike. And I'm like, no, son, I'm not giving you a dirt bike. He's like, you will. Just wait. He's the one walking around with a broken foot right now.
How did he break his foot?
Playing football at school. He got tackled, and I guess the whole other team trampled him as he went, or as he was laying there, and he's small for his age, right? But he's fast, so he complained about it one night. He was like, Dad, my foot hurts. And I looked at it and I'm like, well, it's not bruised. It's not red. You'll be all right. And the next morning he complained about it. And I said the same thing. And then that night he was still complaining about it. And I was like, well, you're probably all right. But it's not like you to complain about things this long. So we'll make an appointment and have it looked at. Of course, the damn thing's broken and I feel like an ass. So... But this funny man, the little the X-ray technician dude, when Maddox told him the story about how he broke his foot, he's like, "Man, you got to come up with a better story. You'd be like, you tackled this guy, and like the ball popped when he did, and you went to run to grab the ball, and your foot got caught in his face mask, and that's how it broke."
Rescuing a bunch of orphans from a burning building.
Right.
Something heroic. Well, Jessica, it seems like the election season has you busy.
The election season does have me busy. And I wish that was the only thing going on right now because it's bad enough. But everything going on at the national level is killing me. The lack of understanding and the lack of desire of people wanting to understand what other people think and believe is just why I hate national politics. Like, people are closed-minded enough at the state and local levels, but you start messing with their nonsense in Congress and it's just certified bleep show.
Well, there certainly was a lot of grandstanding last week and a lot of people digging in on their sides, and the latest weapon in party politics, meme wars.
Well, there's all these memes and these things going around on Facebook, and you're just like, what changed? Whose mind changed after the hearings? I don't even think the people in the hearings who are supposed to be making the decisions' minds changed. Like, it's just that partisan. Everything is down the middle for everyone. And if you're in the middle, then you're screwed.
Well, the hero from Thursday, and I put air quotes around hero, is Lindsey Graham. Now, keep in mind, this is the guy that the Republicans on the national level have despised. Come up with the name Lindsey Grahamnesty. He is not afraid, certainly, to cross the line and vote with the Democrats. And he was a complete ass until he grandstanded, and now he's some sort of conservative hero with a machine gun in one hand, American flag in the other, charging up a hill.
Yeah, it's totally ridiculous. I mean, what he said was legitimate with regard to, like, the character assassination, and I can understand that. Whatever. If you agree with him or you don't agree with him is really not the point. The point is that, this speaks to our political system as a whole. Like, we hate people, and we hate what they stand for, and then they do something that we agree with, so we forget why we were mad in the first place, which I'm not, like, advocating for holding grudges, but that's why we keep electing the same morons over and over, because when the timing's right, they do something, but when no one's really watching and it's really, really important and affects us directly, who are they willing to stand up for? Not us.
No, absolutely. And that speech was canned, and it was good, and it was a good political moment for him, which, whatever. Thing is I say we, people tend to get in their trenches on either side and just spew the same points. My guy's right. The people in the gun community, I'm a big gun collector. I hear them jump up and down about how great Reagan was, and they forget Reagan was he was a pro gun control guy. He
was terrible on guns.
He was, and that goes all the way back to California. So but you can look at him as the totality of what he did and say overall, yeah, absolutely was he a great foreign policy president, and acknowledge the fact that he was not great on personal freedoms.
Right.
Well, and, a couple good sentences when the entire nation's watching does not negate the last 2 decades.
Right.
I'm sorry, it never will.
20 years of crap votes.
Right.
And I don't know, man. He has a long record of doing stuff, of being a statist. And that's the stuff that's really tough for me is the fight is not so much left versus right anymore. It's all statists disagreeing about the best way to steal and spend my money. And they don't legislate anymore. They punt. They give the executive branch wide sweeping powers, and then when the other party wins, they throw their hands up and pitch a temper tantrum for using the authority that was given to the office.
I just hate national politics for this reason. You don't get anywhere. You can't change anyone's mind. All the issues are right and left. I mean...
You know what's worse about it, though, is people will dang fight over it. And on a national level, things move real slow. And we've talked about it here before. Everyone that I know keeps up with national politics. They know about everything. But, when's the last time they passed a bill?
Well, and it's been a very long time since we've seen any real reform on an issue. I mean, other than the Affordable Care Act, I guess you could call that reform, but there's not been an overhaul of any policy position initiative. It's not like the 90s where there was welfare reform and, different things that were bipartisan efforts that made progress in one way or another for one party. Right now, it's just breaking the system a little bit more and adding to whatever existing problems just temporarily. I mean,
until they get a crisis that they can take advantage of, as we see with the Patriot Act. As soon as there's a crisis and everybody is on board to do anything that is... They picked the name Patriot Act for a reason.
Right.
The way things were September 12th, we were ready to fight anybody. And if you put Patriot in front of something, you're going to vote for it. So they absolutely used that crisis and further eroded our Fourth Amendment rights, if we have any left.
No, we don't. So, I'm kind of changing the subject a little bit. I had a discussion here locally about this thing with Ted Cruz.
Which thing?
in the restaurant.
Oh.
What are your thoughts on that? What do you think about that?
So personally, I was bothered by the video that was circulating on Twitter and everything. I think it's bad that we're in a position where people are being harassed. I think it's one thing to come up to somebody and say something and then move along. I think most reasonable people know the line between what is harassment and what is like voicing your opinion, because even at the local level, all these lovely public servants that are like school board members and city council members say, oh, I can't even go to the grocery store, or someone coming up and complaining about something and whining about constituents approaching them. So I think that's common. But the fact that we've gotten to this point where it's like chanting and mobs and just aggressive, not even like constructive, I think that's troubling.
But I'll tell you, the mob thing bothers me because you're not getting any ideas across. And I kind of posed a question to you guys. When was politics about issues? And I
1776.
There you go. The congressional election for Davy Crockett got ugly. It wasn't about issues as much as it was calling each other names. So yeah, this is a couple hundred years of the Roman circus, and people are attracted to the chaos, and it's a form of entertainment. It was the original reality TV.
So, I didn't watch the video. I'm just aware that it happened. And I think my thought on it is, I don't care. You ran for office. That's, occupational hazard. Yep. And I know there's people that are bent out of shape. Oh, he was with his family, or he was trying to have dinner, or whatever. Well, oh well.
Well, I mean, like I said, it's one thing for someone to come up and say, you suck. But to be chanted out of a restaurant, yeah, you signed up to serve. Is that really where we want to be as a country, where somebody is chanted out of a restaurant because people are there that disagree with them? I mean, who's going to end up running for office if that's how it is? And I'm worried that then it's going to become a public safety concern, and we're going to have to pay for their stinking security. I mean, it shouldn't be like this. You shouldn't be so outraged that when you see an elected official at a restaurant that you just want to interrupt your own dinner and their dinner and get in their face.
See, I think I take that and I'm like, maybe these public officials shouldn't do the things that they're doing that would cause that kind of a reaction. But
Ted Cruz isn't even among the worst. I definitely don't agree with everything he's done, and there are plenty of times when, but he is among the least of our problems, and that's how people are treating him. That's what's concerning to me.
Well, it's the pendulum has swung the opposite way. For years, all these congressmen, especially the senators, are at a club. So they get on the floor of the Senate and they make speeches. And then when the day's done, they all go to the same cocktail parties. They're on the same social club. And it's their outrage on the floor is nothing but grandstanding, because when they go behind the scenes, they're shaking hands and patting each other on the back and things like that. And that's not just at the national level. I've seen it at the local level, where one of our local reps was called the Democrats' favorite Republican. Well, it's obviously there's a disconnect, and they're not pushing, your side hard enough if you're their favorite. That would be a point of shame for me if I was the opposite party's favorite.
Right.
And it's one of the issues that I had with John McCain. You know, certainly didn't. He was there too long, and he became part of D.C. You know, you go into D.C. as a jagged rock, and D.C.'s a river. And you think you're going to change the river, but the rock doesn't change the river. The river changes the rock. It smooths you out, all the rough edges, and pretty soon you're just another pebble that laying with the rest of them, going with the flow.
Wow,
Right.
Dave, that was profound.
Yeah, it was. I just wish politics was a little more violent, I think.
Well, you're getting there if you advocate for what's happening to Ted Cruz and others. I mean,
No, man, I miss the days of reps getting in fist fights on the floor, you know? You should be, like, if you're making law, right? Tempers and passions should flare like that over that stuff, because every law that is passed is enforced with a gun, like with deadly force. So I want to see people that passionate about it.
You want to bring back dueling? Can you
Yes.
see Pelosi and Pence?
Oh, that'd be awesome. Pay-per-view that,
With smoothbore pistols.
right? 20 paces. Let's go.
You know, and it's a reflection of society. People think the Old West was a nasty place. Watching movies, it was rather polite. When you have to back up your words with fist or steel, you choose them very carefully. And
Right.
we have gotten to a society where you don't get punched in the damn mouth. And believe me, my nose has been broken for sticking it where it didn't belong. And after a couple times, I learned not to stick it where it doesn't belong.
Right?
And I've been popped in the mouth because there was a instant feedback. And I'm not saying drag people out of the cars and go full on purge and beat them with a baseball bat, but you used to have to back up your words. And if you called somebody a name, there may be a fist coming back at you. And social media gives us this idea of anonymity, first of all, and secondly, lack of consequence.
Right?
This is turning out to be a very violent. This is the worst after school special ever. Pop them in the mouth.
Right?
But Matt, you're right to a certain degree on that. I don't like mob mentality anyway. You know, get your pitchforks and torches out, and we're just going to shout you down. And you know, the thing is, you will never meet in the arena of ideas if you're shouting, because no one hears you and you're not listening.
Right.
Speaking of being of politics and a very special episode, we're going to play the entire interview with Jeff Duncan. We're going to go ahead and roll.
Who's running for lieutenant governor?
Which lieutenant governor is not a vice president. It is a very, very powerful position, as Casey Cagle demonstrated that the hammer of that office is heavy, and it can be used to smash any legislation. It can be used to punish districts, as Cagle was fond of doing. This is not a show position where he's just going to sit to the side in case the governor needs him. This is a very powerful position. So let's hear what Jeff Duncan had to say. Good job, Jessica. That was great. I really liked his views there on which direction he wants to take the state.
So, if you haven't heard, Jeff Duncan was among two candidates to decline an All on Georgia interview in the primary and in the general election. So, that's why Dave just did that. However, the lieutenant governor's office, I think everyone is assuming that whether Jeff wins or Sarah Riggs-Amico wins, that they're going to strip the Senate will strip the governor or the lieutenant governor of his powers or her powers, whoever it might be, which is not exactly a bad thing. I mean, Casey Cagle was the most powerful lieutenant governor in the country, so I don't have a problem, no matter who wins, with some of those powers being limited. They should have been limited for a very long time. But I was talking with someone the other day, and I don't know if I should out them or not, but I'm going to. Delvis Dutton, who's a former state representative, I believe he introduced the bill, when he was in office, to get rid of the lieutenant governor's office. And what he wanted to do was...
That's awesome. We don't need this anymore.
Yeah, I don't think his relationship with Cagle was too good. I wonder why. The idea was to make, instead of having a lieutenant governor, I mean, you would have the position essentially, but it would be a figurehead, and they would actually be the Department of Economic Development. So instead of having the governor's chief of staff travel around the world to do this economic development nonsense, and having a whole other agency, the lieutenant governor would do it and be kind of like the face of the state. The governor would stay here and handle our state affairs, and this person would be the person that goes around and travels and meets and advocates for our state and represents our state all over the country. And like I said, instead of having an entire lieutenant, because the vice president, I mean, does not oversee the day-to-day operations. So that's, if you shift to a figurehead role, it would limit their powers and also eliminate a state agency while bettering the state and cutting costs. So I support that idea, but I don't see anyone in the legislature at this time that currently has the clout or the kahunas to do it.
Well, perhaps if Amico wins, you'll see that fly on through. And, you know, I hate to see a candidate managed. Now, they don't need to be quite as in your face as Trump, and who's never had a thought he kept to himself. But, you know, this is such an upside-down election cycle where the Democrats are the ones who are willing to meet again in the arena of ideas. They're willing to go to someone who's not friendly, who they don't have. I'm not saying you're not friendly, but it's not a cupcake interview. It's going to be, you're going to get real questions, and you expect real answers. And the people who watch it, you know, the subscribers to All on Georgia, are going to see genuine reactions. And if you're afraid of that, are you qualified? Are you qualified to run for office, to hold an office, if you refuse to interact with the fourth estate?
Well, the thing is, too, is that, you know, I sent emails to all of these candidates. It's my fault for not getting to them in the primary with the Democrats. With session and my day job, I just ran out of time. Even though it is my day job, I mean, traveling, trying to find these candidates around the state. I did not get to the Democrats in the primary. But when I got to them in the general, not one of them even hesitated. Like, it might have taken some time to get on their schedule, but they were excited about the opportunity to share why they're running for office. And, you know, Brian Kemp's team, to their credit, has always been extremely friendly to All on Georgia and me, and any interview I've requested has been scheduled, like, instantly, and they're beyond open. And I think he has plans, and he can stand on his own. You know, Brad Raffensperger, who's running for Secretary of State, his website is also very lean, and you haven't seen a whole lot of meat from him, and he's also the one who declined along with Jeff. And it's troubling to me from the standpoint of, I don't want more inaccessible people for the next 4, 8, 12 years. We don't need any more of that. We've had enough.
Well, you know, it makes me wonder if their words are their own, or if they're not a puppet for somebody else, and they're sitting in focus groups to decide what they believe. If you truly believe what you say, and you have closely held beliefs, you can you can talk about it to anyone.
Sure. And you don't have to change your message based on who you're talking to. It's the same everywhere you go.
Absolutely. And, you know, the Democrat for Secretary of State sat down with you. And
hold on. There's an even bigger reason why John Barrow sitting down with us is a big deal. Because All On Georgia is owned by Delvis Dutton, who ran against John Barrow for Congress. And he still sat down with us. Like, that says a lot about him and his confidence in what he believes no matter what I ask, you know?
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, it's like I said to talk about Stacey Abrams last week. He's wrong.
Sure.
But he's not afraid to sit down with someone who's going to ask hard questions and expect real answers. You know, he's a radical from out of the 60s. But that's his worldview, and he is willing to share it with you, and he's not going to run from a member of the press, which tells me that, you know, what he says, those words are his own.
But going back to what we were talking about in the beginning of the show, did you get to watch the whole interview or just a little bit of it with John Barrow?
I watched the whole thing.
Okay, so you don't agree with him, which is totally understandable, but is he as bad as the Republicans are making him seem?
Of course not.
I mean, that's what's so frustrating to me through all of this is, no, I don't agree with all of them, but there are, the Republican and the Libertarian, there are a couple of things where I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't really, ideally we'd pick a little from everyone, but that's not the opportunity we're given. But none of these people, just because you don't want to be governed by them does not mean that the world is going to implode if they win, especially as you go down the ballot. I mean,
and Secretary of State is and you say it in the interview, is an executive type position. It's holding down the fort, overly responsible for a very large groups of responsibilities that are handled by bureaucrats. In the same vein that I say that there's no way Kemp could have been approving individual licenses, if Barrow wins, he's not going to crush small businesses in Georgia. He just, that office doesn't have the ability to do it. It is a CEO position more than it is a nuts and bolts sort of thing.
sure, and he definitely sees the office as a constituent services base. And then, you know, the Libertarian Smythe Duval hasn't run yet, but, I mean, his is very much advocacy and huge focus on kind of the third-party issues that, understandably, that we all care about, but maybe won't affect everyone on a day-to-day basis. So while I agree with, like, 99% of what he's saying, you're kind of like, well, what about everything else, you know? Like, he doesn't appreciate that there's so much licensing, but that's not anything he can change right now. That's in the legislature. So, I mean, it's just, there's nothing that infuriates me more than when you post an article or you're looking through your feed and someone's like, vote red or vote blue, and you're just like, for the love of God, vote issue.
Right.
Well, Matt, you should be uniquely qualified to talk about a libertarian sitting on a licensing board.
Right? No, I'm the planning and zoning czar, remember?
Yes, you control everything in Paulding County. No one can disturb a blade of grass unless Mr. Lowe signs off on it.
I say so, right?
When are you going to petition for all the roads to be turned back to dirt?
I'm not.
Darn. I thought that was going to happen if you were appointed.
No, man, that's going to happen if I decide to run for county commissioner.
Lord help us all. You'll be our first and only elected official on this podcast.
No, man, somebody was floating a short list of names on county commissioners for and mine was on it.
What number were you?
She didn't say, but I was shocked that that my name was on there.
Well, I know who won't be voting for you.
Who?
But we won't say it on this show. But they don't listen anyway.
Who was it? Because
Lydia.
she's the one that said my name was on it.
That doesn't mean she's voting for you.
She would vote for me.
I don't think she can anyway.
No. Not in a post one. Straight, like, chairman.
Oh. That's the gig you want, huh?
That wouldn't be a bad gig. I mean, it'd give you a chance to test out some libertarian theory anyway.
You know what? The first order of business would be to allow beer sales at these county commissioners meetings and hot dogs. And it would be an event to sit there and watch a Matt Lowe-led county commissioners meeting.
Well, he's a terrible host, so I can't imagine what kind of meeting he would run.
Mr. Chair,
It would be my show. See, this is the Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast with Matt, Dave, and Jessica, right? If I was chairman, that'd be the Matt Lowe show.
Mr. Chairman, the outline. What about it?
Yeah.
Read it.
The outline.
Right? Hey, it's my meeting. I'll do what I want.
Sitting there with the glasses on your head.
In a t-shirt.
In a t-shirt, yeah. Yeah, you honestly, you could do pay-per-view on that because it really would be interesting.
It would only be interesting for about the first 3 months. Or however long it took them to like recall me because I get in there every day and I'm like, I moved to abolish the property tax.
You know, a joke aside, it is very, very difficult to recall a sitting commissioner.
Right, it is.
I mean, it was investigated as an option with one of the folks that sit up there in our county.
Right.
But I can't see your wife locking anybody out of a meeting.
Nah, she wouldn't.
At least,
She wouldn't even care. My wife doesn't care about politics at all.
oh, I've told you that my wife is no Dave Roberts fan. Like, did you listen to the show? She's like, why? I've listened to you and your stupid friends talk about politics for a decade and a half now. She says, if I want your opinion, I can just look to my left.
Mine's like, when I want your opinion, I'll give it to you.
And on the state politics side, we have 5 proposed amendments to the Georgia State Constitution. Amendment 1, a portion of revenue from outdoor recreation equipment sales, tax directed to Land Conservation Fund amendment. Now, I want to go to our favorite libertarian socialist on public lands.
Wait. Before we do, we'll just remind everyone that all of the opinions here are ours and ours only, and probably not ours collectively, but ours individually, and especially going forward on this amendment. And
Except that I'm right.
okay, bro. And they're not the views of All in Georgia, only us, and Matt's views are definitely not that of All in Georgia. So Matt, take it away.
All right, the first one is the Georgia Outdoor Stewardship Act. Commonly referred to as GASA. And what?
Nothing.
Oh, I thought you said something. So what it is it sets up a trust fund for money that is to be used for some very specific conservation efforts. Clean water, land acquisition for WMAs, even parks, things like that. And where the money comes from is a sales and use tax on certain outdoor products that, like, the sportsmen of Georgia voted to have this sales tax years and years and years and years and years ago, decades ago. With the promise that those funds would be used to further conservation. And that money for decades now has just gone into the general fund, and it goes through an appropriations process. This year, they Sam Watson, I think, was the guy that introduced the bill, wanted to earmark that money specifically so that it didn't go through an appropriations process. It was a certain amount, or, it was the money went, and then there's an oversight board that oversees that trust fund. But apparently, they have to rewrite the Constitution in order to keep their word, or keep the promise that they made decades ago when we agreed to this sales tax.
Now, why is that if the legislature is given the authority to tax and they hold the purse strings?
I think because it's now dedicated solely to, like they're creating an oversight board and a trust fund for this money to be spent out of. And the interesting thing about it is, like, it started out, they're not even, it won't even be fully funded. Like, it just calls for 40% of that revenue to go to that trust fund. The rest goes to the general fund. And they can increase it up to 80% at some point in the future. So me personally, I'm a little irritated that, why are we at 40%, and why did we cap it at 80? Why aren't we at 100 like you sold it to us for? But I guess I'll take what I can get.
I don't like it because I don't like making something in the Constitution that is loosely written and not concrete and not instructive to the government. Like, the whole concept of the government is to restrict it, and this is giving them leeway to decide how much and when. I don't like that.
Well, see, right now, though, they have total leeway, right? Like, they sold this tax to the sportsmen as it would be used for, these projects. And right now it just goes to the general fund, and they could just tell you to booger off and not use any of it.
Well, and I don't like that, but I can appreciate that that's not in the Constitution. It's just a law that they screwed up like all the others. Like, this, I just don't feel like this is an appropriate, like, if it's not going to be how it's supposed to be, I don't feel like it should be amending the Constitution, I guess, is my perspective on it.
Right.
And I understand that it's not an additional tax. Like, I'm thankful for that. But if you're going to do it, do it.
So you're all or none on it.
Heck yeah.
Like I said, I guess I'm not smart enough to understand why it has to be an amendment.
Because the government said so.
Right. Well, in my humblest of opinions, most amendments to the Georgia Constitution are legislative punts. They don't have the legislative courage to go out and pass a law, so they put it on a referendum and throw it out to the people, and then they word it. And this is not specific to Amendment 1 here, but they word it in such a way that to get the desired response. So, do you like woodland critters and clean water? Vote
No.
yes. If you don't, you want all the trout to die in our streams, and we'll have no more parks, and puppies will die. It's disingenuous the way they word these things. No one actually, I say no one, very, very few people of the electorate are going to sit there and read the actual amendment and where it would fit. It's they give you a summary as a way to say that, oh, we're gonna make it easy for you to understand. And
Right.
like you said, Jessica, it's not a. I understand it's not an additional tax. I understand what the law was poorly done, but I'm with you on the being queasy with the idea of it being a constitutional amendment.
Right. Well, I mean, it's the least worst out of all of them. So there's that.
There is that.
Right.
I mean, yeah.
Well,
Number 2.
You know, if there's, I'm going to plug this real quick. There is, I'd said something about that panel discussion that's going to have David Knight, who is a committee chair for Natural Resources Committee, Chris Jenkins, who's the CEO of the Orion Society. He's also a BHA rep. And then the director of real estate for the DNR, and then a Patagonia rep will sit on this panel discussion specifically about the Outdoor Stewardship Act that will happen at the Patagonia store in Buckhead on October 13th, Saturday, October 13th, from 5 to 8. So if you have questions about it and want to talk to people who are going to be very knowledgeable about it, show up.
Well, they're also going to be a little bit biased.
Oh yeah, definitely. They are going to be biased about it. I mean, I'm biased about it.
What?
I mean, I'm already paying the tax, man. At least
Sure,
do with it what you said you're going to do.
I get that.
Amendment 2.
So,
sorry, Jessica.
yeah, Amendment 2. No, I was going to... You go for it.
Would create a business court.
Which is a terrible, terrible idea. A terrible idea. Because it would be a court just for business issues, kind of like drug court or veterans court, which, aren't necessarily the worst things because it does unclog the judicial system, but, this is going to create all kinds of problems, and the judges are all going to be appointed by the governor. None of them will be elected. There's no term limits. There's not really a whole lot of restrictions on them, and this idea is endorsed by the Georgia Chamber, which is problematic in my opinion. And they say that it should. Governor Deal told Wabe in a quote, he said, "A constitutional created business court would provide an efficient and dependable forum for litigants in every corner of our state." And this has been an initiative of his since he did the Court Reform Council several years ago. But if this passes in November, Deal will be able to appoint more people before he leaves, which means he's expanded the Supreme Court, expanded the Court of Appeals, appointed Superior Court judges all around this darn state, Veterans Court judges, drug court judges, and now we're going to give him the opportunity to stack this deck too? No way. Absolutely not. Hell no. I'm sick of it. He's a FDR for Georgia. Alphabet soup.
Right?
I wish you weren't so ambiguous.
Right?
I know. People ask me, they've been constantly getting calls lately to please be more direct, and I just can't bring myself to do it. But seriously, this is a terrible idea.
No, I agree.
We don't need unaccountable judges. And especially in the business community, when our state has so much corruption with regard to the economic development stuff and the tax incentives and what's shielded from open records and open meetings already under the guise of business and development. We do not need an elected official it's your formula for corruption. You get an elected official who has something to gain, he appoints the people he needs, and he gets something in return. Hell no.
Well, with any of this, it's follow the money.
Sure.
The Georgia Chamber I've been at odds with the state chamber a few times with some of the things that they've pushed. But you're right. It's another layer of government. It's can't be cheap. It never is.
Right.
I don't like having separate classes of citizens. And I'm not even sure what this court is going to hear.
Yeah, that's where I'm at on it. Is like, really, what are they going to do? I mean,
Well,
is it just when businesses sue each other?
I mean, if you click on the bill, the link to the bill, it's only 9 pages, and I say that like after complaining about how long bills are, but when you're creating a new judicial system and you only have 9 pages, and I mean that's concerning. But it says the terms are 5 years for the judges. They can serve as many as they want, and then I guess they're going to divide it up. Even though there's a statewide business court, they're going to have jurisdictions. And it doesn't really outline like what they'll do. All this does is set the terms and the conditions for what you have to do to be a judge for this court, and how long those courts can, or those judges can serve. So I think that's concerning too, because I mean, are we going to pass it and then decide what that looks like?
So they can serve as many terms as they want. They don't have to be reconfirmed.
Right. So, like, if Deal appointed them and then Ken pointed and was like, actually, I don't like you, or you're not pushing the initiatives I want, or whatever the case may be, he could reappoint new people after their terms are up, I guess.
So if the state goes and the governor's mansion goes blue, and this court exists, everybody's going to run around with their hair on fire, screaming, the end of the world is coming, and she's going to get to a point, however many judges to business court, and every other different level that she gets to load up her people, and then we're going to decide that the executive office has too much power.
Sure. I mean, I've said for a long time that the most dangerous part about our next governor is going to be our judgeships, because we've created so many new judicial positions. Like, between the legislature giving all their power to the governor and then the governor stacking the courts, the least of our worries is the legislature, which is frightening.
Well, they don't do anything.
Do they not do anything?
So I'm reading through this bill, some of it, and by reading, really, I guess I should say I'm skimming through it. And under Section 2 in video, it starts talking about divorce cases.
That's because they're amending the language that's already there. That's not new language.
That doesn't have to do with, okay. I'm
right.
like,
only, are you on the HR 993?
Yeah, line 76.
So only underlined is what was new law passed. All the other, like, they just added it to court sections already in place. So they didn't have to...
Okay. I thought maybe this was outlining what they were going to hear, which would be interesting than a divorce case. So, okay. I guess
if you're
I was
getting a divorce and you're a multimillionaire, then you can have
a special court.
But right.
Right. I don't know, man. That worries me. We're going to have a whole new court, which means they're going to come up with a whole new set of laws that this court gets to deal with.
Right. I mean, I'm trying to pull up that's the resolution. I'm trying to pull up the enabling legislation, but
well, it sounds like a solution in search of a problem.
Right.
Totally. I mean, it's a solution to a whatever you said, because it's something that they decided on doing 4 years ago, and his floor leaders pushed this through, and all of a sudden it's important, And this is supposed to be about justice reform, and I'm just really having a hard time understanding the connection between that. But
because he says so.
Sure. It didn't work when my mom said it to me, and it doesn't work now.
Especially from Deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting if this were to pass, and Abrams were to win. If you want to see a desperate lame duck governor, And what's your feeling as far as your average voter walking in and reading this?
Well, did you read the question of this one yet?
Yes.
You did read it already out here? Out loud?
Shall the Constitution of Georgia be amended so as to create a statewide business court, authorize superior court business court divisions, and allow for the appointment process for statewide business court judges in order to lower costs,
That's such BS.
improve the efficiency of all courts, and promote predictability of judicial outcomes in certain complex business disputes for the benefit of all citizens of this state. Man, every bit of that's bullshit. Sorry.
I mean, improve or promote predictability of judicial outcomes. What does that even mean and why?
Well, that is exactly the opposite of what I want a judge doing.
Exactly.
Right?
No,
it should be real predictable. Look at the damn law. Whatever the law says, that's how. You know what I mean?
Well, no. The judge should go in every case, every day, with a clean slate, and he's only ruling on the arguments in front of him, not on his personal values, not on anything else. So, when I say unpredictable, is I want a judge who is walking in who brings no prejudice into the courtroom. So when you say it's predictable, I want him to apply the law to the specific case, not predictability. But this is the wording, and this is exactly kind of what I was saying on Amendment 1 is they take a lot of license when they sum these things up, and most people aren't reading these things before going into the booth. They're reading it.
No.
And you may have a husband and wife come out and they go, "What did you vote for on those amendments?" "Oh, I just voted all yes, I'll send it fine." Or whatever it is, because it's disingenuous at best, the way they write these things. And again, it's vote yes or puppies die.
Yeah, I mean, someone's gonna see lower cost, and that's gonna be lights out for that.
Yep.
Yeah, cheaper sounds better to me.
Yeah. But that's not even a proven fact, because there's not even the true parameters of what this means and how it will be implemented. I mean, it doesn't even say how many judges there will be. It just says how long the judges will serve,
Well, it did say that no jurisdiction will be smaller than a county.
Right, but that means they can have up to 159 judges. And
right.
Even if you're utilizing, moving in a lot of places, what they've done is move one of the Superior Court judges into this position, or the acting, but that still requires a stipend. I mean, we see the bills come through every legislative session where they're increasing the salary for the judge, or saying if a Superior Court judge doubles for this duty, then they get an extra $10,000, or they get this, annually bonus, or an annually awarded bonus, or whatever the case may be. So, I mean, the costs of this have yet to be determined.
Right.
And so, if it wasn't clear before, I'm gonna know.
Well, they're building that great big building. They need to fill up every courtroom.
Oh, if they name that the Governor Nathan Deal building, I will never visit it. That's really the only protest I can offer.
Subpoenaed or not.
Right, I will not go.
You want me to show up, you better rip down that name.
America.
Now, we will be covering all of the amendments, and we got to just the first two tonight, so there are so much more exciting programming to come next week.
Yes, we just want to keep you hanging on. This is like the equivalent of a cliffhanger.
Right.
Although we did give a slight teaser that they just get worse as they go down.
Yeah, Matt's amendment is the least offensive.
Yes.
Yeah, we should all vote yes for that one.
But we're not, so.
No, you should. You
But
do
I
it.
won't.
Do it for me.
I can't.
It's gonna pass anyway. You might as well be on the winning team.
You're not. Okay, first of all, Lindsey Graham. I don't think so. Second of all,
Jessica,
you're
muted.
not worth.
You muted Jessica.
Oh. When did you stop hearing?
Whenever you launched into talking about me.
Oh, I was just saying you're not worth compromising my principles.
Damn, that's harsh.
Is it? I mean,
Man.
is it?
I mean, who is?
Golly.
I don't know. I might for these dogs.
If they wanted to use some public land,
I would encourage them not to.
So, I spent the weekend with my youngest son. We talked about it a little bit up on in a Blood Mountain wilderness, and he almost got bitten by a rattlesnake.
Oh no! Tell us more.
No, no, it was funny, man. There was 4 of us. We were hiking the trail in. We were about halfway between Jared Gap and the Summit of Blood, and Danny was leading, and Logan was in front of me. And whenever I'm hiking and carrying a heavy pack, which it was heavy because I had like extra clothes, a quick shelter in case it started raining, mine and Logan's food, my rifle, because we were in Chester TWMA, which was doing a special bear hunt, rifle bear hunt. But whenever I'm hiking up a mountain and carrying a load like that, I don't look at the top like everybody says to do. I stare at the feet of the person in front of me, and that's when I saw this rattlesnake. And I did something that we don't normally do. Like I typically don't kill snakes at all. But Logan had never eaten a rattlesnake, so we killed this one and ate it. And like it was kind of a cool experience for him anyway, because he got to, back at camp there were other kids running around and he's like, we killed a rattlesnake, we're gonna eat it. Which I guess was like street cred for 9-year-old boys.
Nice.
But it was fun.
I dare ask, not that you could taste anything, how was it?
Oh, I can taste. It's my sense of smell that's jacked.
No, you have no sense of taste.
We normally you're supposed to just boil the piss out of them first because it's cartilage, and it'll soften that up so you can just eat the bone too, because they're obviously very bony. But we didn't. We grilled it and braised it with some beer. So, man, I hate to say it. This one tasted a lot like grilled chicken. It was a fairly young female. Actually, my friend Chris Jenkins, who's a rattlesnake expert, looked at the pictures and decided he felt that it was a postpartum female. But yeah, it was a lot like grilled chicken. Some of the bigger ones, you get into big ones that live around a lake or something like that, and they taste a little fishy, kind of like frog legs to me.
Yum.
Well, I've had Western Diamondback chili, and it tastes like chili.
Right.
Well, there's Matt's closing thought.
No.
No?
My concluding thought has to do with, it's actually kind of touches on what we talked about here about being with judges and predictability and whatnot. And if y'all remember a couple, months ago, I mentioned on the show that grizzly bears had been delisted, which means they were taken off of the endangered species list because they had met their restoration goals. It actually met and exceeded their restoration goals in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, which is commonly referred to as GYE, and it's a section of Wyoming, Idaho, and Montana. And just on Thursday, a judge put them back on. Like, he went against every scientific measure available and put them back on the list, which effectively killed. There was Idaho had issued 1 grizzly bear tag, and Wyoming had issued 22. So it killed those hunts, and there's already new legislation drafted to delist it again. But
oh no,
my gripe is, yeah, that's it. Activist judges.
well, I'm shocked to my very core. I don't even have an opinion.
Jessica, closing thoughts?
No, I would just offer a small piece of advice this week, just for the sanity of knowing that I tried. I would just encourage everyone who is on social media and discussing politics and in the realm of, trying to make a difference or trying to convince other people to hear your side. Think about how you're doing it, and think about if it's productive or if it's taunting. Like, we all joke about trolls, and there's a place for them, and I asked Matt to come in and troll some of the people on my posts, whatever, like, it happens. But when you're actually trying to have a productive conversation, like, I really wish people would think about how they're presenting their ideas and how they're listening to others. Because we are headed for, this whole national scene that we have right now is going to start trickling down to our states. It just is. It's going to happen, and it's only going to become more divisive. And the only thing that can stop that is if people are willing to have the conversations, to understand other people, and to try to help other people understand them. So that would be my hippie granola, give peace a chance, parting thought for the week. Because if I don't say something like that, it's going to be something that's going to be bleeped out multiple times. So
You had 2 rows. One was sage-like advice. The other was to curse like a sailor and throw the laptop across the room.
Right. Right. So, Dave?
I you guys know this. So, if you have a boat, use it. If you let it sit for 18 months and then you get on it and try to head offshore, bad things happen. And luckily for me, it happened very close to the harbor. As we were pulling out, about to head offshore, clunk went the engine. And there are worse places for that to happen. But that's just a reminder to me to get away more often. And my touching advice is spend more time with your boat. Such a first world problem.
Right?
Well, thank you guys.
Do I need to start hitting you up for a February fishing trip now? Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, start being annoying now, because that's the guy who won the boat with me.
Okay.
Stop being annoying now.
We could do a Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast fishing weekend. Make Jessica go fish.
Veto.
Why?
Is it like deep sea fishing?
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
Why?
Let's talk about it next week. I'll tell you about my deep sea fishing story.
Now that
Fair enough.
is the cliffhanger.
Right?
There you go. Dun, dun, dun.
Great show, guys. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Later.